Welcome. So in this video I'll be showing you how to make a camera shake in Unity with no code at all. We're going to be using the animation function within Unity and creating a camera shake that you can modify however you want. Let's get started. First, what you want to do is create a new window, go down to animations, and you will want both of these, so animation and animator. And I'll drag the animation tab down here and then the animator tab up here. This is where we usually put it. It's a good position that if you want to look at both of them at the same time you can. So what we want to do next is create a folder, name it animations, and just gonna double click in there. And what I'm gonna do now is simply go on animations and okay, let me make a simple scene first. So now I've just finished setting up a simple scene. So basically it's a camera face this cube, so we can see the shaking going on when we zoom into the camera. So what you want to do next is select the object that you want to animate. In our case, this is going to be the main camera. Selecting this and going to the animation tab, and you see a create button. So selecting the object that you want to animate and click on create. What you want to do next is select the place you want to save it, which is the folder that I named animations beforehand, and I'm just going to simply name this camera shake and saving it. See, now what you see is a timeline in the bottom right here where you can do your animations. The way we do this is by adding keyframes. What a keyframe is basically a position or whatever you do to the object in time, and in between that time to another point, which is the second keyframe, it transitions smoothly between them, and you can modify the transition however you want. You'll make more sense when we get into it. So another very simple example will think like this. So for example, this timeline is like a video and I'm trying to edit the audio. At the start, the audio is set to 0 right here, and the video plays through this entire blue part over here. And as I move on, I put another keyframe on the 40 seconds mark. And in between these keyframes, I changed the decibel from -5 to +5. And at the start, I can set it to for -5. So -5 in transitions to the first keyframe, and then in between the 5 and the 40-second mark, it will transition slowly, raising its decibels, raising, and when it gets to the 40-second time mark, it will be set to 5 decibels. Hopefully that was a clear explanation of what a keyframe is. So let's get modifying. So the first thing you want to do is basically think about how you're going to create this camera shake. So often in games, a camera shake is basically the camera trying to shake its camera around. So let's just change the rotation. It can be doing something like this, changing the Y rotation, or changing the Z rotation like this if you want a more rocky kind of camera shake. And you can even change multiple of these at the same time. So you can change X, Y, Z at the same time, so the camera is going around in a loop or a circle. So I'm gonna quickly do some camera shake keyframes right here, and I'll show you when it's done. So as you can see, I've got a very basic animation where it's just going around in like a soft wiggle right here, a soft wiggle. And if you want to create some really intense shaking, you will be wanting to change only the Z, so like this. So a simple one will just be, so as you can see here, I've made a simple animation by just changing the Z rotation. As you can hear, the only thing that is changing is the Z rotation, and you can see you got a quite violent camera shake right here. So now I'm going to be teaching you how to use the timeline. What you want to do is find the component or whatever you want to change or animate within your object, and click on this red button to record. So at the start, when you click on record, it's not going to record anything. It's only ever when you change a value or anything you want to animate, it will start recording it into the timeline. So right now, as you can see, there's no keyframes right here, but if I change this just by even 0.1, so -1, 0.2, and you see that now there's a keyframe right here, and if I just play this through, stop the recording, play this through, you see that it's simply setting the 0 rotation to -1. And if I do this a few more times, so click on record, change this, and click on don't need to keep clicking on it, sorry, just leave it on and change it while it's recording. So animate it however you like, change it like a wider gradient, and then space the timing out randomly, and you'll see right now it's created a very violent 0 rotation camera shake where the screen is just like this twitching, and you can fiddle this around however you like, since with animation you can do really whatever you wish to do. You can even change the position. So let's go back to game view and stop recording. Right now the camera looks like this. You can make it so that even when you start recording, the camera Y changes, so it slowly goes up a bit by bit, and sorry, let's change the X a bit, and in the end I'll put a bit of Z, so like that, and let's stop, and then we'll see the camera is going around in the positions we set. And for this, it's a bit fast, I think, so let me just span it out quickly, like so. So now if I play this, you see that the camera is zapping instantly back to the cube, because after the keyframe gets finished playing, it jumps straight back to the first position. It doesn't loop like this. So what you can do is copy the first 2 keyframes, so like this, or do it like this, and select it like that. The reason that you can't select the 2 of them at the same time is because there's other keyframes in the middle, so you really can't select it. And now if you just simply try to play this, you'll see that the cube the animation moves in a smooth line where it keeps bouncing between the different positions, because it's taking the same positions and just moving in between them. And I don't think that this can be used in many places where the camera shake is just playing constantly every single time. Maybe it is in, for example, 2D games. You want the screen to shake throughout an entire level, but I want it to be able to, so that we can trigger it whenever we want. So for that, we're not only gonna use just getting this one animation, we're also gonna make another animation for idling. So we're going to create 2 animations, one for idle and one for camera shake. And so what you can do is create an idle animation. So how you do that is go to the folder that we saved our animation to earlier, and basically right click and create a new animation. So go down to animation, you see animation controller, and animation is what we want, and I'll name this camera idle. And what you do is basically simply drag it in, and you'll see that you got a new animation called idle. And I'll be explaining how this works in a minute in brief detail, because I'm planning to make a video on this and describing everything in more detail. So basically what this is just looking on the surface logic. It's entering and just playing this camera shake that we made beforehand, but this is not connected to anything, so it won't play. And if we go back to our game, and you will see that's exactly the case. It will start playing the camera shake, but that's not what we want. We want it so that the camera is in the idle mode until we tell it to shake. So to do this, you'll see that there's 2 different colors with the animations. One is gray and one is yellow. So the difference between these is that the yellow one is always the one that's going to get played first before anything. So this is basically the one that we're going to start off on. So to change this to the start of animation, you right click and you click set as layer default state. And you see that this becomes yellow. And if you run the game now, go back to game view, and the camera is in a stable state and it's not shaking in any way, shape or form because we told it not to, and because we haven't put anything within the animation. Double click on it, it's basically not gonna play anything because there's nothing inside. And you will see if I go to animations, sorry, idle animation, there's nothing inside, so you won't play anything. That's exactly what we want. And there, if that's all you wanted, animation camera shake without scripts, and you can change the animation to whatever you want, so you can create multiple animations of different type of camera shake and play it on different levels. If that's all you wanted, then there it is. But I'm gonna go one step further and create a script that we can control and basically tell it to shake whenever we want it to shake. Let's get started. The first thing we'll want to do is set that as the default state. Let me change it around a bit. And what you want to do is go to projects and basically create a new script. I've created mine called camera shake. Basically just connect it up with the camera and simply drag it in. Open it in Visual Studios, and in here I've simply put a get input. This is what we do on a daily basis. Basically every video I make, I just put an input so we can test the program out. So now that you set up your basic script, what you want to do is complete this logic for the animator. Basically right now, if you look on the animator, it's playing the animation simply on entry and just stopping. And if you go to the animation we created earlier, you can see that it's simply playing it and not looping it at all. But if we click on this camera shake, we can see that the loop is ticked, so it will play basically infinitely, and we don't want that. We want it to transition to the camera shake and stop playing when we tell it to. So the way we can do this is by right clicking on this and select make a transition. You'll see that it creates an arrow line, basically follows my mouse and snaps to anything that it can snap to. And we want to make it so that it can transition from the camera idle to the camera shake, and also be able to transition back to the camera idle. We don't want it one way, because if you transition to the camera shake, then we can't transition back because there's no wire connecting it. And now is where it gets a bit confusing. So what we want to do now is configure the transitions so that we can change it in our code. On the top left over here, you see parameters, and once you click on it, you can see a empty list and a plus sign. What we want to do is add a new parameter that we can change within code, and if this parameter is true, do a transition. So click on plus and a bool, because we can set this to true or false depending on if the transition, so if we're holding space or not. That's an example. So I'm just going to put to camera shake and another one called, oops, where did I put it? There, sorry. And create another one, exit camera shake. And right now we've simply just created these variables. We're not hooking up with anything. So select the transition that you want to camera shake, so transition to camera shake, which is this line over here, and you'll see that the conditions list on the bottom here is empty, and this little plus sign you can click on. What you want to do is click on the plus sign, and you will see it automatically creates a list and a drop down menu to the ones you want to do. So we want this to transition only if this is true, and we want it to exit only if when the exit camera shake is set to true. And next, I'm going to be showing you how to modify this within code so it works. Before I show you how to do the code, I just want to show what this actually looks like and the logic behind it. So in our code, we're basically just ticking on the camera shake, and you see that it's just shaking, and this is looping over and over and over again. And if we untick this and tick the exit camera shake, you see that the idle keeps playing. But one way we can do this even better is just a simpler way and a better way to do it is simply have a camera shake transition and set it to true. So when it's true, it will transition, and when this is off, it will transition back to idle camera. So how will we do this? Same logic behind it. We can change this name a bit there, and I'll just name it camera shake. And for these transitions, we have to set it again because it no longer exists. For transitioning to camera shake, we want it to be true, and when we're exiting, we just want the camera shake to be simply false. And if you run the script and play the animator there, you see that right now it's in the idle state because this is false, and when this is ticked, it gets transitioned to camera shake, and it infinitely repeats. And if you notice something right here, after I tick the box, there's kind of a bit of delay after each time I click it. So right there, there's about half a second delay every time he transitions. If you don't want this, you can untick a box on the settings over here. So select the transition, and you see it has exit time. This basically means it will finish playing the animation first before transitioning to the next animation. So untick this on both. You see that this becomes more smooth in a way, so that it transitions straight away. Boom, no delay, stops. Transitions, no delay, stops. And we're basically gonna just switch this switch on off in code. So going into your script, this is what you should see, and I'll be running through all the logic, so I'll make sure you understand everything. And the first thing you want to do is create a variable that we can save our animator in. So animator, and I'll make, so if you haven't watched my referencing video, this is basically just getting the variable animator and naming the animator. And in our void start, we're taking the name of the variable, which can save a variable type of animator, and we're just making it equal to get component animator right there. Don't worry if this confuses you, I'm planning to make a video on get components, so it'll be more clear for beginners. And in our if statement, we basically want it so that the animator, and if you remember what I said in my last video, each time you press dot, it's basically going a level down. So dot, what do you want to do? We want to bool. What do we want to do to the bool? We want to set bool. And if you don't know what to do in a code, you can hover over it and your editor will tell you what to do. So it takes in a string name and a bool value. To make it make sure it takes in a string, we do double quotation marks, and we put the name we did in the editor. So right here it says camera shake, that's what we named it. We'll name it exactly the same, so camera shake, and comma, and the second one we want a bool value. So we want to transition to it every time we get the key down. So one key down, we want it set to true. So when this is true, this will transition, remember, look. So if I select the transition, and you see when it's true, it will transition, and when it's false, it will come back. And so we want it to be simply true. And right now, we have a way to transition, but we don't have a way to transition back. We can just copy this code and put it same thing under, but instead of get key down, we can do get key up dot key code dot space, and instead of true, we'll just put false. This is simply doing the same thing as manually ticking this and unticking this, but in a more simpler and easier way, just by pressing space using our keyboard. So I'll get rid of this, and in game view I'll press space, and you should start camera shaking right there. And when I let go, it pauses. That's perfectly what we wanted. You can use this method in many of your games. For example, in a 2D platformer, you can make a spike and a mechanic so that when your character gets hurt, it starts limping or something. So when the spike, so another parameter, when the spike is hit by the player or the player gets damaged, and also at the same time the player is moving, you can play the shaking animation, so to symbolize limping. But right now this animation is not suitable for limping. You can customize it however you want, but right now this is just for showcase. And when the player moves, it will create a limping effect, and when the player lets go, it will just go back to idle. And remember, the idle animation doesn't have to be blank. You can make it whatever you want really. So you can make it this like a slight breathing effect in idle and drag it out, and transition to the camera shake only if it is needed in your game. So when the player is walking and their leg is also hurt, so then only then it will start limping. I know the code that I write is not very optimized or the best you can do, but I just want to teach you the very basics and let you explore yourself. I don't want to guide you each step you take so that you start blindly following tutorials like I used to do. The reason I made these videos is to guide you in a general direction and make sure that you can have a certain area that you can explore yourself as well. So that's gonna be basically it for this video. We've made a simple camera shake in using animations, using no code at all basically. The only code is getting the input and make sure that when we press down the cube, the animation plays. It is very simple and basically anyone can do it. And it's easy to customize however we want. We can just do the animations, change position, or change the rotation or whatever. So I hope you enjoyed and this has helped you in some way, and I'll see you next time. Bye.